You're living inside a timeline right now, but what nobody ever told you is this. It's not the only one available to you. All around you, behind your thoughts, beneath your emotions, beyond your senses, there are infinite versions of reality already vibrating, already alive, already waiting for you to step into them. Not metaphorically, literally. And yet most people stay trapped in a single loop. Same patterns, same reactions, same outcomes, same frustrations echoing day after day. They look at their life and wonder, why doesn't anything change? Why can't I break through? Why does it feel like I'm stuck? And the answer they reach for, fate, destiny, bad luck, has nothing to do with the real reason. Let's break that illusion right now. You're not stuck because the universe has closed its doors on you. You're stuck because your internal frequency, your mind, your nervous system, your emotional patterns, your expectations is still tuned to the old timeline. You're transmitting yesterday's vibration and expecting tomorrow's reality to respond. It doesn't work like that. You can't break free by wishing harder. You can't escape by forcing outcomes. And you definitely can't trick the quantum field by pretending to feel aligned when your body is still wired for fear or scarcity. A quantum shift isn't about manifesting more intensely. It's about stepping into a new state of being so completely, so coherently that reality has no choice but to respond. The field mirrors who you are, not what you want. This is where people misunderstand manifestation. They think desire is the fuel. If I want it enough, the universe will deliver. But the quantum doesn't respond to want. It responds to alignment. Right now, you could be doing every manifestation technique perfectly. Affirmations, vision boards, visualizations, and still be broadcasting the frequency of your old life. Because under the surface, your system is addicted to the familiar. Your subconscious is still looping old emotional codes. Your body is still rehearsing old versions of you. You may be speaking abundance while vibrating lack. You may be affirming love while expecting rejection. You may be visualizing success while embodying fear. And here's the part that changes everything. The quantum listens to the dominant signal, not the loudest one. Your dominant signal isn't your thoughts, it's your state. It's what you embody when no one is watching. It's the vibration humming beneath the stories you tell yourself. This is why repeating "I am wealthy 1,000 times means nothing if your body contracts every time you open your bank app. The field registers the contraction, not the words. This is why people loop. This is why timelines don't shift. Because the outer world can't reorganize until your inner world does. And today, that's the veil we're beginning to lift. So let's go deeper. Because this is the part most people completely overlook. You've heard about the observer effect in quantum physics, the idea that observation collapses possibility into form. But here's the twist almost no one talks about. You're not observing reality only with your eyes or thoughts. You're observing it with your beliefs, your emotions, and your subconscious expectations. And this is where everything gets flipped. You think you're manifesting from your conscious mind, the part of you that says, I want more abundance, I want new opportunities, I want a better life. But the conscious mind is only 5% of your operating system. It's the tiny tip of the iceberg. 95% of your life is controlled by the subconscious, the patterns you didn't choose, the emotions you didn't resolve, the stories you absorbed from childhood, and the deeply wired survival programs your nervous system clings to. So think about what that means. You're trying to shift timelines with the awakened 5% of you, while the dormant 95% is still broadcasting fear, lack, doubt, and old identity patterns. Guess which signal the quantum field responds to? The dominant one. Always the dominant one. This is why manifestation feels inconsistent. This is why you can change your environment, your job, your relationship, your haircut, yet the same emotional loop repeats under every new surface. Because nothing external has the power to override an internal frequency that hasn't changed. You are not stuck because you're doing something wrong. You are stuck because your internal observer hasn't shifted. And that internal observer is your subconscious. It collapses reality automatically. It chooses the familiar timeline. It clings to what it knows, even if what it knows is painful. Why? Because the subconscious mind is designed to prioritize safety over progress. And safety to your system means the familiar. Not the good. Not the aligned. Just the familiar. That's why people stay in loops. Not because they're weak, but because the body believes the old reality is safer than the unknown. And this is where resistance enters the picture. Resistance is not laziness. Resistance is not lack of willpower. Resistance is the nervous system saying, new timeline to our danger. It hides behind excuses like, be realistic, maybe later. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail again? And it shows up as overthinking, procrastination, numbness, perfectionism, or emotional shutdown. But behind every form of resistance lies the same core message. I don't feel safe becoming someone new. So even though your conscious mind says, I'm ready, your body is still bracing for the old version of life. This contradiction is what keeps collapsing the same timeline again and again. And here's the truth you need to hear. You can't shift timelines by forcing yourself to think differently. You shift timelines by teaching your body to feel differently. There comes a moment in every transformation when the universe stops whispering and starts responding. It's subtle, it's quiet, and yet it's the single most powerful turning point in your entire timeline. Most people miss it because they're too busy searching for big signs, external breakthroughs, sudden miracles, dramatic shifts. But reality doesn't start with explosions. It starts with alignment. And alignment always begins inside your nervous system long before anything appears outside. Let me explain something that almost nobody realizes. Your reality doesn't change when you think differently. It changes when you stop reacting like your old self. That is the exact moment the quantum field recognizes a new frequency. Because it's not the positive thoughts that shift timelines. It's the absence of your old emotional triggers. Think about it. Your past timeline isn't held together by circumstances. It's held together by emotional patterns, your familiar reactions to stress, to uncertainty, to opportunity, to silence, to discomfort, to possibility. Your old reality survives because you keep feeding it with the same emotional energy. The day you stop feeding those patterns, even for a moment, you stop collapsing the same version of reality. This is why breakthroughs often happen during the smallest internal shifts. The moment you don't get triggered by something that used to break you. The moment you choose calm when your body wants chaos. The moment you respond with clarity instead of defense. The moment you stay present instead of running back into old coping loops. The moment you feel the urge to self-sabotage and simply don't. These micro shifts are seismic events in the quantum field. Because, the universe isn't looking at your desires. It's observing your identity. Reality bends not when you want more, but when you become someone who no longer vibrates at the frequency of your past. This is the moment the field says, this is a new observer. And a new observer collapses a new timeline. Here's the part that feels strange when it first happens. Your external life doesn't instantly flip, but the energy around you does. Suddenly things feel lighter. Opportunities reappear. People treat you differently without knowing why. Your intuition sharpens. Synchronicities increase. You start noticing patterns that were always there but invisible until now. This is not coincidence. This is calibration. The quantum field is reorganizing around your new identity, matching you with timelines you were previously out of sync with. And once this begins, there's no going back unless you collapse back into old emotional habits. Because your old timeline doesn't want to lose you. It will tempt you with familiar discomfort. It will test you with the same triggers, not to punish you, but to see if you're still a vibrational match. And here's the truth. Your breakthrough isn't the moment the universe changes. There comes a moment on this path where something strange begins to happen. Not outside you, but inside the architecture of your awareness. You start noticing that the gap between your thoughts and your reality is shrinking. Things you merely considered possible begin showing early signs of formation, like ripples appearing on still water before a wave rises. At first you think it's coincidence, then repetition removes all doubt. This is the threshold, the point where your inner frequency becomes strong, enough to influence the outer field. Most people never reach this place, because they scatter their energy in thousands of directions. But the moment you learn to hold a single intention without breaking its signal, reality starts bending quietly around you, not dramatically, not instantly, but undeniably. Your mind becomes a transmitter and the universe becomes a responsive field. You begin to understand that reality isn't something happening to you, it's something happening through you. Every emotion becomes a command. Every belief becomes architecture. Every expectation becomes a blueprint waiting for expression. And this is where the real test begins. Because at this stage, your fears manifest as fast as your desires. The universe doesn't choose sides, it only mirrors the dominant signal you broadcast. If your energy oscillates between doubt and belief, chaos appears. But when your inner state stabilizes, when your emotional frequency becomes consistent, creation accelerates. This is why the ancient masters didn't focus on thinking better thoughts. They focused on becoming a better signal. This level requires a new kind of discipline. Not forcing outcomes, not chasing signs, but maintaining inner coherence no matter what the external world shows. You start realizing that every delay, every obstacle, every silence from the universe is not punishment. It's calibration. Reality aligns only when your internal vibration stops shifting like sand in the wind. Once your emotions, thoughts, and energy move in one direction, the field has no choice but to respond. Not because you are special, but because you are finally in harmony with the mechanism that creates worlds. And in that moment, when your inner frequency locks into clarity, you cross an invisible line. Reality no longer feels random. Synchronicities increase. People, opportunities, and solutions start appearing with impossible timing. You recognize the pattern. You recognize the intelligence. You realize you've entered the layer where reality listens. Once you cross the point where reality starts responding to your inner signal, something even more mysterious begins unfolding. Life stops feeling like a sequence of random events and starts revealing a hidden choreography, one that was always there, but invisible when your mind was scattered. You begin to notice that things are moving before you take action. Opportunities shift. People realign. Paths reorganize themselves quietly in the background. It feels as if the unseen world is editing your timeline, removing what no longer matches your new frequency and pulling in what does. At first, this rearrangement feels subtle, almost gentle. You feel nudges, intuitive pulls, sudden clarity that appears without thought. But the deeper you move into this layer, the faster the invisible adjustments become. You'll notice certain situations dissolve without confrontation. Old patterns break without effort. People who once drained your energy drift away naturally. Doors you once knocked on suddenly open without resistance. This is where many people panic because the rearrangement doesn't always look positive at first. Sometimes things fall apart. Sometimes plans collapse. Sometimes the universe removes what your ego wanted so it can deliver what your soul asked for. But if you stay steady, if you trust the intelligence moving behind the scenes, you begin to see the perfection in the disruption. At this stage, the universe responds not to your surface thoughts, but to your core frequency. If deep down you've shifted into clarity, confidence, self-worth, or purpose, the field must reorganize itself to match that signal. This is not philosophy. This is physics at the level of consciousness. And the most astonishing part? You no longer need to push your way through life. You no longer need to grind, chase, or force outcomes. Your energy begins doing the work for you. This is the beginning of resonant manifestation, where alignment outperforms effort, where intuition outruns logic, and where timing becomes your greatest ally. Every step starts to feel guided. Every decision feels supported. Every moment feels connected to something larger than you. It's here that you realize you're not manifesting your desires. You're aligning with the reality where those desires already exist. You are no longer swimming against the current of life. You are moving with it, carried by a flow you once believed was mythical. This is the start of a new way of existing, a quieter power, a deeper intelligence, a reality that responds to you because you finally learned how to respond to yourself. You've entered the realm where the unseen begins shaping your visible world. At this stage of the journey, something profound dawns on you. Reality is not passive. It remembers you. Every intention you've held with emotion, every vision you've revisited, every inner shift you've embodied, leaves an imprint on the field around you. Your energy becomes a signature, a kind of frequency identity. And the universe, this vast, intelligent matrix of vibration, begins responding to that signature with precision. Not based on what you casually think, but on who you consistently are. This is where most people misunderstand manifestation. They think it's about commanding the universe. But in truth, it's about teaching reality how to recognize you. When your energy stabilizes, the field begins reorganizing itself with remarkable accuracy because it finally knows what you belong to. Slowly, you begin to see the echo of your inner world reflected everywhere. A thought you had days ago shows up as a conversation with a stranger. An image you visualized becomes an accidental opportunity. A feeling you've been practicing reappears as an external experience. You start understanding that nothing in your life is random. Not the timing, not the delays, not the sudden breakthroughs. Reality is simply returning what you continuously broadcast, and the more aligned your internal state becomes, the more seamless this return process gets. The field remembers your clarity faster. It reflects your confidence quicker. It matches your emotional state with less resistance. This is also the point where the universe begins testing your consistency, not to punish you, but to make sure your new frequency is stable. You'll encounter situations designed to pull you back to your old patterns, to see whether you fall into the same emotional loops or rise above them. But the moment you respond differently, with calm instead of fear, with trust instead of doubt, with intention instead of reaction, you break the loop. The test dissolves. A new timeline locks in, and then something magical happens. Reality begins showing you shortcuts. People appear who accelerate your journey. Ideas show up before you need them. Events unfold with impossible timing. You feel as if the universe is whispering, "I remember your signal. Here is everything that belongs to it." This is the first taste of conscious co-creation. Not forcing, not controlling, not begging the universe, but partnering with it. You realize that manifestation isn't about bending reality. It's about becoming someone reality is eager to respond to. And from this moment on, life stops being a struggle. It becomes a dialogue, a conversation between your frequency and the field that surrounds you. You're no longer trying to create your future, you're remembering it. By the time you reach this layer, something profound begins to unfold, something far more significant than manifestations, synchronicities, or intuitive guidance. You start to feel the slow dissolution of the old you, the identity built on survival, fear, and inherited limitations. It's not dramatic. It's not sudden. It's a quiet unraveling, like threads softly slipping out of a fabric no longer meant to be worn. You notice that your reactions change. Situations that once triggered you feel distant. Old emotional loops fail to activate. The story you lived inside begins to lose its grip. This collapsing of the old self is not destruction, it's liberation. The frequency you now hold is incompatible with the patterns that once defined you. You are no longer fueled by insecurity, comparison, or chaotic desire. Instead, you move with an unfamiliar calm, as if a deeper intelligence has taken the wheel. As the old identity dissolves, the external world begins mirroring this transformation. People treat you differently without knowing why. Opportunities align without effort. You find yourself in places, conversations, and decisions that feel pre-written, for a version of you that existed only in potential until now. But there is one challenge here. The world tries to pull you back. Friends, habits, memories, and old emotions will test your new frequency, not because the universe is doubting you, but because it's giving you a final chance to demonstrate who you've become. Every test is a mirror asking, are you still the old self? Or have you truly shifted? This phase requires immense inner stability. You must learn to respond from your new vibration even when the remnants of your past appear. Each time you choose alignment over reaction, presence over fear, clarity over chaos, you strengthen the architecture of your new reality. Slowly, the old timeline collapses. The version of you built on pain fragments into dust. The gravitational pull of your past loses all power, and then it happens. A subtle but unmistakable shift. Your inner world becomes so coherent, so aligned, so elevated that something clicks into place. It feels like stepping into a higher atmosphere where the air is thinner, lighter, more charged with possibility. Your thoughts feel cleaner. Your intuition becomes louder. Time itself feels different, less linear, more fluid, more responsive. You realize you are no longer becoming. You are. This is the moment the new self is born. Not in a burst of fireworks, but in a profound silence. A clarity so deep it feels infinite. A knowing so steady it becomes your foundation. From here, you don't chase reality. You generate it. You don't wait for signs. You embody them. You don't manifest from desire. You manifest from identity. Your life begins aligning with a version of you that was hidden beneath years of noise, doubt, and conditioning. Now it finally has space to rise. By the time you reach this level, something fundamental about how you experience life begins to change. Time, once a straight line you walked along, starts behaving more like an ocean. You begin to sense currents beneath the surface of events, flows that pull certain possibilities toward you while carrying others away. What you once called luck or coincidence now feels like intentional alignment. This is the stage where linear time loosens its grip on your perception. You notice that your past no longer dictates your future the way it once did. Old memories lose their emotional weight. Patterns you thought were permanent dissolve. You begin to live less from history and more from a state of awareness that exists only now. And in this now, the boundaries between what has happened and what can happen begin to blur. You start having moments where the future feels strangely familiar, as if you've already stepped into it somewhere in the unseen. Ideas arise before the circumstances that require them. Opportunities appear just as you become ready for them. You think of someone and they call. You imagine a solution and reality presents it, not because you predicted it, but because your consciousness arrived there first. This is the quantum moment where your inner state travels ahead of your physical experience and begins shaping what comes next. Most people think the future is something you move toward. But here you discover a deeper truth. The future is something that moves toward you when your energy becomes a match for it. Time reorganizes around your frequency. Sequences rearrange. Events reorder. What should have taken months happens in days. What should have been impossible becomes effortless. But this level demands something powerful. You must stop trying to control the timeline. The moment you cling, force, or panic, you fall back into linear time, where things are slow, predictable, and heavy. But when you trust the unfolding, when you release your grip on how and when, the field accelerates again. You synchronize with the version of reality already waiting for you. In this state, stress loses its purpose. Doubt loses its influence. Fear loses its authority. Because you finally understand that time is not a chain pulling you forward, it is a canvas responding to your vibration. You stop living from deadlines and start living from alignment. You stop waiting for the right moment and start realizing you are the right moment. And every time you choose coherence over chaos, the timeline shifts in your favor. This is where you become a conscious participant in the mechanics of destiny, where moments stretch, collapse, or accelerate based on your emotional frequency, where your inner state becomes the architect of your unfolding life. Here in this quantum moment, you don't just move through time. Time begins moving for you. By the time you reach this layer, something profound begins to happen. Not in your circumstances, but in you. The identity you carried for years, the one built from memories, fears, opinions, and survival patterns, starts dissolving. Not violently, not suddenly, but undeniably. You begin to see that the you who struggled, doubted, feared, and overthought was never the real. You only a temporary construct shaped by experiences you outgrew. The deeper your awareness becomes, the more transparent this old identity feels, like a costume that no longer fits. At first, this collapse feels confusing. You might feel distant from your old habits, detached from old desires, uninterested in old conflicts, almost as if you've stepped out of a character you forgot you were playing. You catch yourself reacting differently. You're calmer in situations that used to trigger you. You're clearer where you were once anxious. You're grounded where you once felt unstable. This is not self-improvement. This is self-replacement. The old emotional loops stop because the internal architecture that sustained them is dissolving. You are shedding layers of yourself that were never truly yours, patterns inherited from family, society, trauma, or the survival needs of your younger self. As these structures collapse, you experience a strange form of freedom. The freedom of not being who you assumed you were. But this stage also comes with a challenge. Your old identity will try to pull you back. It will whisper familiar doubts. It will recreate old fears. It will attempt to reattach itself through people who only knew the older version of you. Not because it's powerful, but because it's dying. Identity death always tries to resurrect itself. But if you stay present, if you refuse to return to outdated emotional signatures, you'll notice something extraordinary. A new version of you starts emerging. Not a better version, not a stronger version, a truer version. This new identity isn't built from effort, but from awareness. It isn't shaped by fear, but by clarity. It doesn't chase validation because it no longer doubts its own existence. And with this emergence comes a shift in vibration so strong that your outer world must reorganize. People don't treat you the same. Opportunities come that weren't available before. Reality mirrors a frequency that wasn't active within you until now. You don't just feel different. Your life begins responding to the difference. This is the moment where the line between who you were and who you are becoming becomes unmistakable. The collapse of the false self isn't destruction, it's liberation. You're not losing who you are, you're losing who you were never meant to remain. This is the gateway to the next stage, the conscious creation of your new reality. There comes a final point on this journey where the entire structure of your understanding dissolves, not slowly, instantly. A moment where something inside you clicks with such clarity that every question you've ever asked collapses into a single truth. You were never manifesting reality. You were remembering it. This realization doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic visions. It arrives like a quiet shift in gravity, a subtle inner knowing, a recognition so deep that you cannot explain it in words, yet you feel it echoing through every layer of your being. You begin to sense that the universe you were speaking to was never separate from you. It was not a force outside. It was not a power above. It was the deeper dimension of your own consciousness, responding, always responding to the frequency you carried. At this level, you no longer chase signs because you are the sign. You no longer ask for guidance because guidance flows through you without effort. You no longer struggle to align with the field because you finally understand. You are the field. Every intention you ever set was simply a memory of a reality already existing in the quantum layer. Every desire was an echo of a timeline where it was already fulfilled. Every synchronicity was a breadcrumb, leading you back to the version of yourself that had never forgotten this truth. You look back and realize the journey was never about learning how to manifest. It was about removing everything that made you forget your own power. The doubts, the fear, the noise, the beliefs inherited from a world that never understood energy, consciousness, or the architecture of creation. And as those layers fall away, something extraordinary happens. Life stops feeling like something you control and starts feeling like something you co-create. You no longer resist the flow. You no longer question the timing. You no longer fear the unknown, because the unknown stops being a threat and becomes a frontier, a playground, a canvas waiting for the vibration you choose next. At this stage, reality begins responding almost instantly. Not because you are lucky, not because you've mastered some hidden technique, but because nothing inside you is contradicting your own energy anymore. Your frequency becomes clean. Your intention becomes stable. Your presence becomes magnetic. And for the first time, you understand what ancient mystics meant when they said that enlightenment is not about gaining anything. It's about remembering what you always were. A fragment of consciousness, an architect of timelines, a creator disguised as a human being. This is the moment you stop seeking reality and start shaping it simply by existing. You have not reached the end. You have reached the beginning of the reality where you finally wake up as yourself. There comes a moment on this journey where everything you once sought outside yourself begins to turn inward, not as a withdrawal from the world, but as a recognition that the world is responding to you. This is the stage where the seeker becomes the source, where you stop looking for signs and realize you are the one generating them. In this layer, the boundaries between your inner state and your outer experience grow thinner than ever. You begin to see the extraordinary truth that reality was never separate from you. It was echoing your frequency with absolute precision. Every delay reflected a hesitation within you. Every opportunity reflected alignment. Every emotional shift created a new configuration in the field. At this stage, you no longer live in reaction. You live in authorship. And that changes everything. You start noticing that the world bends not to force, not to effort, but to coherence. When your emotional, mental, and energetic states move in harmony, life responds with astonishing efficiency. Conversations flow. Decisions clarify. Timing becomes impossibly precise. You feel guided not by a voice, but by an unmistakable alignment that moves ahead of you like an invisible path being unrolled in real time. But the most profound transformation isn't external, it's internal. You stop fearing outcomes because you finally understand that outcomes are reflections, not judgments. You stop doubting yourself because you see how doubt instantly destabilizes the field. You stop chasing validation because you realize nothing external can surpass the authority of your inner state. This is the stage where you reclaim something you lost a long time ago. The awareness that your consciousness is not passive, it is creative. The more you embody this truth, the quieter your mind becomes. Not because you suppress thoughts, but because you no longer argue with reality. You participate in it consciously. You adjust your energy with intention. You create from alignment instead of desperation, and slowly a new identity forms. You stop being the person who hopes life gets better. You become the person whose presence makes life respond better. This is where the quantum field reveals its final secret. Reality is not changed by effort. It is changed by embodiment. When you embody the version of yourself who already lives the life you desire, the field reorganizes instantly, not gradually, not someday, instantly. Because in that moment, you are no longer manifesting, you are synchronizing with a timeline that was always available but only accessible through identity, not intention. This is the final crossing. The shift from creating with thought to creating with being. When you reach this stage, you're not waiting for signs, miracles, or synchronicities. You become the frequency that generates them. You are no longer walking through reality. Reality is unfolding around you. Now we arrive at the core principle most people completely overlook: embodiment. You've learned about desire, alignment, frequency, and the unseen field. But all of that remains theoretical until your body, your emotions, and your actions fully step into the reality you're calling forth. Manifestation isn't about imagining a new life and waiting for it to show up. It's about becoming the version of you who already inhabits that life before anything external confirms it. And this is where so many people stall. They think they can shift reality by thinking, wishing, or visualizing alone. But the quantum responds to coherence, not effort. It responds to the energy your whole system emits, not the statements you repeat in your head. Embodiment requires full system participation. Your thoughts, your posture, your breath, your choices, and your feelings must all signal the same message. If your mind says, "I am abundant," but your body tightens at the sight of money, the field reads the contraction, not the affirmation. If you visualize love, but your heart is armored from past pain, the field hears isolation, not connection. This is why micro-actions matter more than grand gestures. Embodiment happens in subtle, repeated choices. Spending money with trust instead of panic. Choosing vulnerability in relationships even when your old fears urge you to hide. Treating your body with respect and care as though it is already thriving. Pausing to breathe deeply before reacting to triggers, instead of falling into old patterns. Each small, aligned action strengthens your signal. Each return to coherence after slipping back reinforces the new timeline. This is the dance of quantum embodiment. Noticing, recalibrating, and consistently choosing the frequency of your desired reality. And here's the paradox: you do not wait for external evidence. You do not wait for the timeline to catch up. The timeline shifts because you've already become the version of yourself who belongs there. It's not about faking. It's about living fully, moment by moment, in alignment with your chosen frequency. Every time you embody your desired reality, you collapse the wave of infinite potential into the version of life waiting for you. The quantum field has no choice but to respond. Reality begins to mirror the coherence you are holding within, and the more persistent your alignment, the faster the collapse, the clearer the reflection, the more unstoppable your shift becomes. This is the alchemy most people never master. They wait, they hope, they chase signs. But embodiment teaches a different law. You don't get the life you want. You become the life you are meant to inhabit. Now that we understand embodiment, let's talk about the instruments that help you anchor into your new frequency. These are not magic tricks or shortcuts. They are vibrational cues, devices, to help your subconscious receive and integrate the signal that you are living in the timeline you desire. Some people resonate with breathwork and meditation. Deep intentional breathing regulates the nervous system and creates a state of internal coherence. Meditation allows you to observe the noise of the old timeline without reacting, giving you access to the part of you that already vibrates in alignment with possibility. Visualization works when it's paired with felt sensation, when your body actually experiences what the mind imagines. Others feel a pull toward sacred symbols, numbers or sounds like Tesla's 3, 6, and 9, or repeating sequences like 369 or 777. These are not superstitions. They are encoded patterns in the universe that resonate with natural harmonics. When you align with them consciously, your nervous system recognizes the pattern, signaling to the quantum field. This is coherence. This is alignment. Mantras, chants, or tonal frequencies work similarly. They provide a consistent vibrational thread, something the subconscious can lock onto, reinforcing your new identity. But here's the catch. No tool has power without your participation. You cannot outsource transformation. The ritual amplifies your energy because you are already amplifying it through your practice, your attention, and your embodiment. The real work is choosing one practical act today that embodies the new timeline. Something small yet deliberate. Pause for 3 conscious breaths before reacting. Speak one sentence from the perspective of your desired self. Visualize yourself moving through your day surrounded by the frequency of your chosen reality. Notice how subtle this is. The quantum field does not respond to grand gestures alone. It responds to consistent, coherent alignment. The small, repeated acts create a stronger signal than occasional bursts of effort ever could. And remember, imperfection is part of the process. You will slip back into old patterns, and that's okay. The power lies in returning to coherence, strengthening your signal each time. Every micro-alignment is a collapse of potential into reality. Every pause, every breath, every intentional act is the wave bending to your frequency. By combining embodiment with tools and anchors, you create a living system that continually reminds your subconscious and the quantum field who you truly are, the version of you that already inhabits your desired timeline. Here's the part most people never reach: sustaining the shift. Many assume manifestation is a single event, a moment of clarity, a breakthrough, a miracle. They visualize, affirm, journal, and wait. And when the world doesn't immediately mirror their desires, they collapse back into old patterns, wondering why it didn't work. But true transformation is not about visiting the new timeline, it's about living there. Every day, every moment, every choice. Sustaining the shift is mastery. And mastery isn't about being perfect or forcing happiness. It's about returning. Falling into old loops is inevitable. Resisting life's challenges is human. But every time you notice yourself slipping and choose to come back to coherence, you strengthen the new frequency. Every pause, every conscious breath, every aligned action is an act of reinforcement. Sustainability requires 4 essential practices. First, daily awareness. Before your feet even touch the ground, ask yourself, what frequency am I carrying today? Fear or trust? Struggle or flow? Setting the tone internally matters more than any external plan. Second, embodied action. Throughout your day, practice micro-alignment. Are your actions matching your desired reality? If you seek abundance, are you generous or hoarding? If you seek love, are you opening or shutting down? If you seek health, are you nurturing or neglecting your body? Small, consistent actions carry far more weight than sporadic grand gestures. Third, emotional regulation. Triggers will appear. Doubts will arise. You will fall into old patterns. The mastery lies not in avoiding them, but in returning. Breathe, ground, reconnect with the version of you who already inhabits the new timeline. Fourth, community and symbols. Surround yourself with reminders of your frequency, numbers, mantras, sacred images, supportive people. Let the environment reinforce your signal rather than dilute it. Finally, gratitude amplifies everything. Gratitude is not wishing. It is recognition of already having. When you practice it genuinely, the field responds instantly, reinforcing your alignment and accelerating the collapse of your desired timeline. Here's the truth: you are not chasing your timeline. You are becoming it. Every aligned choice, every conscious act, every embodiment of your frequency is a declaration. This is who I am now, and the universe cannot help but respond. Sustain the shift, and the new reality no longer requires your effort. It simply unfolds around your coherence. Now let's get into the practice that turns theory into reality. Micro-alignment. Most people think shifting timelines requires massive, dramatic change. They imagine quitting their job, moving cities, or overhauling their relationships. But the quantum field doesn't respond to size, it responds to coherence. And coherence is built, not by grand gestures, but by repeated, small acts that match your desired reality. Micro-alignment is about catching the moments when your old frequency wants to take over and choosing differently. When scarcity thoughts arise, do you spiral into panic or breathe and feel trust? When fear tells you to hide in relationships, do you retreat or soften your heart and reach out with vulnerability? When your body aches or your energy wanes, do you punish yourself or treat yourself with care, as if vitality is already your natural state? These choices might feel small, but their impact is enormous. Every subtle shift in thought, emotion, posture, or habit carries vibrational weight. Each time you act from the frequency of the version of you who already inhabits your desired timeline, you collapse the wave of potential into form. The field sees the consistent signal and aligns events, people, and opportunities accordingly. Microalignment also teaches presence. You stop reacting automatically to triggers and start observing your impulses. You notice your habitual loops without judgment. You make conscious choices that reinforce the timeline you want instead of reinforcing the old one. Over time, these micro-adjustments compound, creating a powerful momentum that your conscious mind could never generate alone. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's returning. You will slip into old patterns. You will feel fear, doubt, and hesitation. That's normal. The power lies in how quickly and intentionally you return to alignment. Each return strengthens the new frequency, sending a clear, dominant signal to the quantum field. This is who I am now. The paradox is beautiful. You don't wait for circumstances to shift. You shift first. You move as if the timeline is already real, and the quantum responds. The field does not test you. It mirrors your energy. The more you practice microalignment, the less resistance exists, the faster the timeline collapses, and the more natural your new reality becomes. This is why mastery of microalignment is the hidden key most manifestors never discover. Big actions feel like progress, but coherent, repeated small acts are the engine that collapses the wave and births your desired life. Before you can fully collapse into your desired timeline, you must understand the subtle force that keeps most people trapped. Resistance. Resistance is not laziness. It is not a lack of desire. It is not a sign that the universe is against you. Resistance is the nervous system defending the familiar. It's the part of you wired to survive the old timeline, even when the old timeline no longer serves you. Resistance shows up in many forms: overthinking, procrastination, perfectionism, hyperproductivity, emotional numbness, or even logic disguised as fear. It whispers, be realistic. Don't risk it. Stay where it's safe. And it can be sneaky sometimes. It feels like discipline or practicality. But underneath, it's your system clinging to what it knows. Here's the critical insight. The quantum field responds to dominant frequency, not conscious desire. You may scream with your mind, I want abundance. But if your body is bracing, contracting, or broadcasting fear, the field picks up that signal instead. Resistance is often encoded in stored trauma, inherited fears, or old emotional imprints. It is the chemistry of the body, not the logic of the mind, that dictates which reality collapses. That's why people can affirm, visualize, or journal endlessly and see no shift. Their internal observer, the part of them that collapses reality, is still entangled with the old self. And until the observer releases the old patterns, no amount of external action can change the outcome. The good news is this: resistance is not a block, it's a guide. It tells you exactly where your system is still out of alignment. It shows you which old loops are still being fed. And when you meet resistance with awareness, breath, and gentle recalibration, you begin to weaken its hold. Every time you choose coherence over contraction, every time you respond rather than react, you send a new signal to the quantum field. This is why the mastery of timelines is less about forcing outcomes and more about training your nervous system. Practices like conscious breathing, microalignment, emotional regulation, and subtle embodiment teach your body that the new reality is safe. Over time, the resistance loses its power. It no longer dictates your actions or thoughts. You are no longer a participant in the old timeline. You are the dominant signal of the new one. Understanding resistance is the threshold most manifestors never cross. But once you embrace it, work with it, and integrate it into your practice, the old loops lose their grip, and the new timeline becomes inevitable.